for 42 Ds.
We know it's a rental. What can you tell us about the renter?
Mr. and Mrs. Stark from Oklahoma. Checked in Monday. He's in oil. Very particular. When's the last time he called down for his car? Since Tuesday?
Are you sure he hasn't used the car since then?
Actually, we wouldn't know. Mr. Stark has chosen not to use valet service. The basic pain in the ass. Yeah, I mean, we try to keep the guests happy. So we informed Mr. Stark, and he was welcome to get his own car. He took his key back.
First few days, I drove myself everywhere.
Most tourists take taxis.
You ever seen those guys? It's like they're on a suicide mission.
Zane says there's plenty to see within walking distance.
Do you make any exceptions in the last few days?
Hell no. They've been keeping busy at the convention anyway.
I'm sure you're missing the night rush isn't taking you at all, huh?
No, not when there's clients to wine and dine.
Well, where'd you take these clients 2 nights ago?
Some supposed hot spot where the drinks were warm and the waitress is cold.
Place got a name?
Sure it does, but damned if I can tell you what.
Well, how'd you get there?
We had a few before we went, so I can't quite recollect.
Why do they need to look for a car?
Probably just to make sense. Can I get that for you, Mr. Stark?
I got it. Probably find a spare tire in there.
Yeah?
What's that?
If I know.
These are hospital issues, just like the pair that need Chloe.
We're just getting set up. It is True Crime and Makeup Friday. I'm going to do my best with my effed up mouth to give you a true crime story.
Get out of my face.
How you like it, you little freak?
What the hell is going on here? I've never seen that girl. I've been railroaded.
You want to set up a nice guy like you?
You don't know how cutthroat the oil business is. Maybe the ball and chain finally went off her nut.
Well, Dora says that you didn't come back to the hotel Tuesday night.
All right. I cheat on my wife. But where I come from, that's not a police matter.
So who'd you cheat with?
I don't know her name. The boys and me went to one of them titty bars that never closes. We went straight from there to the convention. Ask the boys.
Oh, we will. Names and numbers.
If you're feeling generous, DNA safe.
Hey, I donate all the time. AB negative. Rarest type there is. They call me the Tulsa Gusher.
Witnesses put Stark at peek-a-boos all night.
What about 3:30 the day before when that science geek saw Chloe and his Jag?
Couldn't have been Stark. He was too busy putting a room full of conventioneers to sleep with a long-ass feet.
Olivia, Chloe's red kid came back
Stark isn't a match.
to any of them. There's more than one dude. Try 4.
She was ganging.
Okay, we know one of our perks got hold of Stark's Jag. The question is how.
It was parked at a week-long excuse for a bender. A couple of drunken fellow oil men could have easily lifted the keys. Do you know how many people crammed into that hotel for the convention?
Maybe this will help narrow it down. I plowed through the logs from the hospital on an outgoing call to a cell phone registered to...
Deanna Sterling.
Who swore that she never talked to Chloe again after the club.
Odd, it was a 7-minute call.
Well, what are all the other names?
At 3:40 a.m., Chloe calls Vienna from the hospital.
It's less than an hour before I got there.
At 3:47, Deanna calls Andrew Kenworthy, who then calls Davis Harrington at home.
So we're just getting the jewelry done so I don't have to deal with it
That
later.
sounds pretty desperate.
Indeed. Davis then calls Vienna, who calls Seth Walford III. And then they ping-pong back and forth throughout the day.
Sounds like you got 3 of our 4 guys. Andrew, Davis, and Seth. Pick them up.
Andrew Kenworthy, damn it! Little advice? Keep your eye on the ball.
Who the hell are you?
Sexy too trolley. You need to come with me.
For what? Rape and murder, Chloe Dutton.
Who?
Can you believe the attitude on her?
Alright, it's time to get started. Let's do this. Today's segment is on the Hillside Stranglers.
Diana?
The Hillside Strangler, later Stranglers, plural, is the media epithet for one, later two, America's serial killers who terrorized Los Angeles, California between October 1977 and February 1978, with the nicknames originating from the fact that many of the victims' bodies were discovered in the hills surrounding the city. Hold on, I'm trying to
Here, all the instructions. I don't even have enough for an.
Sorry. It was initially believed that only one person was responsible for the killings. The police, however, knew from the positions of the bodies that two criminals were working together, but withheld that information from the press. The perpetrators were eventually discovered to be cousins Kenneth Bianchi and Angelo Buono Jr., who were later convicted of kidnapping, raping, torturing, and murdering 10 women and girls ranging in age from 12 to 28. The Hillside Strangler murders began with the deaths of the sex workers who were found strangled and dumped naked in the hillsides northeast of LA between October and early November 1977. It was not until the deaths of 5 young women who were not sex workers, but girls who had been abducted from middle-class neighborhoods, that the media attention and subsequent Hillside Strangler moniker came to prominence. There were 2 more deaths in December and February before the murders abruptly stopped. An extensive investigation proved fruitless until the arrest of Bianchi in January 1979 for the murder of 2 more young women in Washington and the subsequent linking of his past to the Strangler case. The most expensive trial in the history of California. And you gotta understand, there's been a lot of people, like Ted Bundy, a lot of people arrested in California. Ramirez, not Ramirez, I can't speak English, sorry. So yeah, that's pretty wild. Legal system at that time followed, with Bianchi and Buono eventually being found guilty of those crimes and sentenced to life imprisonment. In January 1976, Kenneth Bianchi left Rochester, New York, and moved to Los Angeles, California, to live with his cousin Angelo Buono Jr. Buono provided a strong role model for the docile Bianchi. When Bianchi was short of money, Buono came up with the idea of getting some girls to work for them as prostitutes. 2 teenage runaways. Who's Ken? One of the Hillside Stranglers. This is the case I'm doing right now. Buono came up with the idea of getting some girls to work for them as prostitutes. 2 teenage runaways, Sabra, I'm so sorry if I messed this up, Sabra Hannon and Becky Spears, meet Bianchi, and Buono, and once under their control were forced to prostitute themselves. Eventually, Spears happened to meet lawyer David Wood, who was appalled at her situation and arranged for her to escape from the city. Hannon, ran away from Bianchi and Buono a short time later. With their income gone, they had to find more teenage girls. Why did it have to be teenage girls? Why not just get some actual prostitutes and, like, be a pimp if that's what you want to do? I mean, I'm not encouraging that. Like, it's wrong. But, like, why did it have to be teenagers? Why couldn't it be actual, like, prostitutes? You know, because, I mean, they're already doing it for a living anyway, so, I mean, they're not going to be, like, too hard, I guess, to convince to do that. But, I mean, not to say, I'm trying to find a way to say this without sounding like I'm talking down on sex workers, because I get it. Sometimes you don't have a choice. That's all you can do, and I don't put anybody down for that. I mean, you do what you gotta do. I respect 100% anybody who will do that to save their kids, their families, whatever. But I'm just saying, I feel like teenage girls, like, they had to be teenage girls. Like, you couldn't find actual, like, already hookers and use them, you know? It's just not right, especially when it comes to minors. Minors should not be prostituting themselves. Impersonating police officers, they eventually found another young woman and set her up in the previous girl's bedroom. Also, they bought from a prostitute named Deborah Noble a supposed trick list with names of men who frequented prostitutes. I cannot speak English today. I don't know what my issue is. Noble and her friend Yolanda Washington delivered the trick list to Buono in October of 1977. So you gotta give me a little breaks in between because my mouth is still like effed up. So I have to like break and breathe. I gotta drink and I smoke. Okay. Yolanda Washington happened to mention to Buono that she always worked on a certain stretch of Sunset Boulevard. When Bianchi and Buono found that the trick list that Deborah Noble had deceived them or had sold them was fake, they were unable to find her. They were unable to find her. They decided to take their rage out on Washington. Her naked body was found on October 17th, 1977, on a hillside near the Ventura Freeway. Detective Frank Salimo of the LA Sheriff's Department was called to the scene. I'm sorry, it's really hard to talk, so I'm trying to do this as well as I can. It was determined that the corpse was clean before being dumped. Faint marks were visible around the neck, wrists, and ankles where a rope had been used. The victim had also been raped. And because there's inevitably going to be some jackfuck that asks this dumb question, yes, prostitutes can be raped. They can say no, and no means no. I don't care if you're a hooker or anyone, really. Male, female, whatever. You can say no. So, yes. We're not dehumanizing anyone. Moving on. On November 1st, 1977, police were called to Alta Terrace Drive in LA, in La Crescenta, a neighborhood 12 miles north of downtown LA, where the body of a teenage girl was found naked, face up on a parkway in a middle-class residential area. Also, I feel like when it comes to the media, it really doesn't get a lot of attention, like murders of sex workers, until they murder somebody of, I guess, a better class. Like, I think that's really crappy, and I don't think that's how it should be, but unfortunately it is. Like, hookers and the things that happen to them, they don't get as much attention as, say, like a middle-class mom of two, and that's very sad and unfortunate, and I really think that's something that we should work on, especially in this day and age. But that, unfortunately, is just how it is. The homeowner had covered her with a tarp in the early morning hours to prevent the neighborhood children from viewing her on the way to school. Ligature marks were on her neck, wrists, and ankles, indicating to police that she was bound and strangled. The body had been dumped, indicating she was killed elsewhere. A coroner report further detailed that she had been raped and sodomized. The girl, who was described as being small and thin, weighing about 90 pounds and appearing to be about 16 years old, was eventually identified as Judith Miller, 15, a former student of Hollywood High School, a runaway and occasional sex worker. And honestly, even, like, that's a minor child, so I feel like that should have gotten a lot more attention in the media than it did, but of course, because she was a prostitute and not high class or anything, it didn't get the attention it deserved. Judith was last seen alive on October 31st, 1977, talking to a man driving a large two-tone sedan on Sunset Boulevard next to Kearney's. The Stranglers told her they were undercover police officers, handcuffed her, and took her to Buono's auto upholstery shop at 703 East Colorado Street in Glendale, where she was murdered. I don't know what that means. Sorry. I also try to avoid answering personal questions when I'm doing a segment. 5 days later, on November 6, 1977, the nude body of another woman was discovered near the Chevy Chase Country Club in Glendale. Like Judith, she bore 5-point neck, wrists, and ankles ligature marks, and of having been strangled and brutally raped, but not sodomized. The woman was identified as waitress Alyssa Teresa Lissa Caston. So her name was Alyssa, but she went by just Lissa, who was last seen leaving the restaurant where she worked the night before her body was discovered. Caston was also a professional dancer for all the female dance troupe, the LA Knockers. Great name. And unlike the two previous victims, she was not a sex worker, drug user, or runaway. The Stranglers followed Caston after she was seen driving home from work, pulled her over on the street she lived on, presented a fake police badge, and told her they were detectives. They then handcuffed her and told her they needed to take her in for questioning. Alright, well, these set. I'm going to take a break. Oh, God. Get a drink. Smoke. I won't answer any personal questions now. Till I start up again. Cosplay, check. I don't know what you mean by frog or mushroom. I mean, I like frogs. Sorry. Hello, Faye. This is kind of just a moment for me to also take a break from just talking too much. Because I do still have stitches in the palate of my mouth and I don't want to, like, rip them out or something by fucking accident. Because that would suck. But don't worry, there's more true crime to come. I'll just... Thank you for the follow, Faye. I cannot wait till I get my dentures. This is rough. Thank you for the share, cat. Let's keep going. In just a minute, we're gonna keep going. Okay. At some point in early November 1977, the two men approached Catherine Lorraine Baker, 24, the daughter of actor Peter Lorre, famous for his role as a serial killer in the film M. However, when they found a picture of her sitting on her father's lap among her identification, they let her go without incident, fearing the murder of a celebrity's child may attract an unusually high amount of police and press attention. On Sunday, November 13th, 1977, two girls, Dolores Ann Dolly Cepeda, 12, and Sonia Marie Johnson. It could be Sanja, but I think it's Sonia. I think it's pronounced Sonia. 14, boarded an RTD bus in front of the Eagle Rock Plaza on Colorado Boulevard and headed home. Their two corpses were found by a 9-year-old boy who had been treasure hunting in a trash heap on the hillside near Dodger Stadium on November 20th, 1977. Both the girls' bodies had already begun to decompose. It was determined that they had been strangled and raped. Earlier that same day, November 20th of 1977, hikers found the naked body of Christina Weckler, 20, a quiet honor student at the Art Center College of Design, deemed by Detective Bob Grogan of the LAPD to be a loving and serious young woman who should have had a bright future ahead of her. On a hillside between Glendale and Eagle Rock, when found by Grogan, ligature marks were on her wrists, ankles, and neck, and when he turned her over, bruises on her breasts were obvious and blood oozed from her rectum. There were 2 puncture marks on her arm, but no signs of the needle tracks that indicated a drug addict. It was later revealed that Christina had been injected with Windex, a hard surface cleaner. Give me just a second to do my eyes here. Ooh, that got away from me, didn't it? Ooh. It's okay, we can fix that. Give me just a second. Sorry. Okay, fixed it. Anyway, let me do eyeliner real quick. On November 23rd, 1977, the badly decomposed body of Evelyn Jane King, 28, an aspiring actress, had gone missing on November 9th, was discovered in the bushes near the Los Feliz off-ramp of the Golden State Freeway. The severity of decomposition prevented determination as to whether she had been raped or tortured, but she had been strangled like the others. They composed a task force of 30 officers to catch the predator, now dubbed as the Hillside Strangler. November 29th, 1977, police found the body of Lauren Ray Wagner, 18, a business student who lived with her parents in the San Fernando Valley in the hills around LA's Mount Washington. There were also burn marks on her hands indicating she was tortured, in addition to the now customary ligature marks. Lauren's parents had expected her to come home before midnight, and the next morning when they found her car parked across the street with the door ajar, her father questioned the neighbors. He found that the woman who lived in the house where Lauren's car had been parked saw her abduction. Why this woman didn't call the police, I don't fucking know. This woman stated that she saw two men. One was tall and young, the other one was older and short with bushy hair. She also stated that she heard Lauren cry out, "You won't get away with this," during her abduction. Now, personally, if I witnessed an abduction, I may not call attention to myself by, going out there, but I'm still going to call the police. Don't know why she didn't call the police, but she did. So, on December 14th, 1977, the body of sex worker Kimberly Diane Martin, 17, which was naked and showed signs of torture, was found on a deserted lot near LA City Hill. The body of the final Hillside Strangler victim was discovered in LA on February 17th, 1978, when a helicopter pilot spotted an orange Datsun abandoned midway down a cliff on the Angeles Crest Highway. Police responded to the scene and discovered the new body of the car's owner, Cindy Lee Hudspeth, 20, a student and part-time waitress, in the trunk. Cindy's murder had initially been unplanned. Bianchi had arrived at Buono's upholstery shop at closing time on February 16th to discover Cindy in the company of Buono discussing upholstery work she wished him to perform on her car. The two men had a private discussion, opting to make her the next victim. Oh, fuck you guys. In January 1979, after intensive investigation, hold on. Police charged Bianchi and Buono with the crimes. Bianchi had fled to Bellingham, Washington, where he was soon arrested by Bellingham Police Department for raping and murdering two women he had lured to a home for a house-sitting job. Bianchi is serving a life sentence at the Washington State Penitentiary in Walla Walla. Bueno died of a heart attack on September 21st, 2002 at Calipatria State Prison in California, where he was serving a life sentence. Buono died, in 1980, Bianchi began a relationship with Veronica Compton during his trial. She testified for the defense. She was later convicted and imprisoned for attempting to strangle a woman she had lured to a motel in an attempt to have authorities believe that the Hillside Strangler was still on the loose and the wrong man was in prison. This is a sad story of the Hillside Stranglers and their victims. Personally, I think they both should have received a death sentence, but at least one is off the streets and the other in a grave. I would love to hear your thoughts and comments down below. Until next time, have a good week. Be carefully kind to strangers, and make good choices. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Bye!